How's it going, Interpeoples? I am your Fantasy LP star, and this is I Played a Thing. I must beg your pardon for not getting anything out last week. I was feeling very unwell for most of it, but we do regret the outage. All that aside, we have a winner. I Played a Thing's first patron poll has concluded, the people have spoken, and what they have spoken for is Phantasy Star. Released in 1987 for the Sega Master System, Phantasy Star is the first entry in Sega's one-time flagship RPG series. It was designed by Rieko Kodama, aka Phoenix Re, who worked on many Sega games in various roles, including lead designer for Phantasy Star 2 and 4. Phantasy Star 3 was really weird and, if I'm not mistaken, developed by a completely different team. Compared to the original Final Fantasy, also released in 1987, Phantasy Star is mechanically somewhat primitive. For example, elements don't really mean anything. Fire, thunder, and wind spells just do different amounts of generic damage. It does, however, have a vibe and charm all its own, and for my money is easily one of the best-looking games of the entire 8-bit generation. So join me, won't you, as we take to the stars and experience the first tale of the Algol system. Ah, here we are. Really takes me back. In fact, this is a game I have not played in well over 10 years, so please excuse me if I bumble through it a bit, but I think I remember most of the really important stuff, so let's go ahead and get started. Space Century 342. Caminite on Palma. Scum! Do not sniff around in Lassik's affairs. Learn this lesson well. Nero, what happened? Don't die!
Alice, listen. Lassik is leading our world to destruction. I tried to discover his plans, but I could not do much by myself. I have heard of a man with great strength named Odin. Maybe the two of you can stop Lassik. Alice, it's too late for me. Be strong.
I will make sure that my brother died not in vain. Watch over and protect me, Nero. And with that, we begin the game. Our main character here is Alice. Let me take a look at the stat screen here. There she is, with a whopping 16 hit points to begin with. Stas is your status. We start out with leather armor and a shit sword. Okay, short sword, but it's still pretty shit, so we'll want to replace that quickly. No magic to begin with. Nothing in the inventory. That MST is for Meseta, which are the standard currency of the Phantasy Star series. Search, we can search the immediate area, which is usually not very useful. And save is fairly self-explanatory. One very nice thing about this game is you can save pretty much anywhere. And here is the home of Alice. By the way, the game kinda drops you into the middle without a whole lot of build-up, aside from that short cutscene at the beginning. What the really important thing to know is that Lassik is kind of a dictator guy who's taken over the Algol star system where this all takes place. You'd probably figure that from the intro, but that's the idea here. He's kinda taken over and instituted martial law and basically made a big dick out of himself. And now our brother was trying to investigate his wrongdoings and got himself killed for it, so we are naturally out for revenge. Now right here we see one of the things that makes me say this game is mechanically a bit primitive. All of the townspeople and NPCs just kind of stand there and don't move around or anything like that. But we get a very nice view of them and the surrounding when we come up to talk to them. In some dungeons you will not get far without some sort of light. Fairly standard RPG stuff, but good to know. I'm Suelo. I know how you must feel, dear. No one can stop you from doing what you know you must do. But if you should ever be wounded, in battle, come here to rest. Please rest yourself. You are welcome here at any time. It's always nice to know we have support, and Suelo here is actually pretty practical support in the early game. She amounts to a free inn, So you can just pop into her house anytime you need to and get a full health restoration without spending any of your hard-earned peseta. This is a church. Do you wish to resurrect someone? Yes. Oh, Alice is alive. That's convenient. May the gods watch over you. To advance to the next level, Alice needs 20 experience points. So the church is where you go to find out when your next level up is, should you be concerned about that, and as implied by the question at the beginning, where you also go to resurrect any fallen party members. Of course, right now we have no other party members, and if Alice dies, the game's over, so not relevant to us at this point. You had better not leave the residential area. You look like those jerks that killed my brother. Unless you hope to die, you had best stay here. So they pretty strongly ward us off from leaving the town, but they're not actually going to stop us. If we walk out and get ourselves killed, that's on us. So at least we do still have that freedom. You need a dungeon key to open locked doors. Again, pretty straightforward RPG stuff, but good to know. Oh, one thing I should mention is that in the Japanese version, Alice's name is given as Elisa Landale. They took the A off Elisa to fit it into the 4-character limit for the party view in this, but her last name is never actually given in the US version. So there's a ship in Phantasy Star 4 called the Landale, and that reference is going to go over most folks' heads if they don't know that. There are a lot of references in Phantasy Star 1 that are in Phantasy Star 4 throughout the game, but they're generally not explained very well and may have information that you wouldn't know just from playing the US version, so I'll try and point those out when I can. The Comet residential area is under martial law. That, by the way, is where we are right now, Comet. And these guards just say the same thing as the ones at the other exit, so we can skip over them. If you want to make a deal, you should head to the port town. A deal for what? Well, it's being mentioned by an NPC in an RPG, so you can bet it's going to be important. You cannot pass without road pass. So although we can leave the town, for whatever reason, we can't go to this walkway to the left, which means, of course, that we're going to have to do so eventually. You may not pass. See, the second guy's not even polite enough to tell you about the road pass. Do you know about the planets of the Algol star system? Yes. Okay, good day. Well, if we admit our lack of knowledge, I think we'll probably get a little more out of the elderly gentleman here. There are 3 planets, Palma, Motavia, and Azorus. Palma is a world of green, Motavia is a world of sand, Azorus is a world of ice. The Algol star system is currently facing a great crisis. That would be Lassic. Oh, that reminds me, Lassic is also mentioned in Phantasy Star 4, but they use the name Lashik. I think Lashik is actually a more faithful romanization of his Japanese name, whatever that might be, or at least that's what I've heard. But that's another reference that could go over your head if you weren't certain if Lassic and Lashik were the same person. Did we talk to this guy? I don't think we have. There is a spaceport to the west of Comet. Ah, that's what would be on the other side of that walkway. Well, we are definitely going to want to get to a spaceport eventually, so we'll have to work out how to get past those guards there. I'm Nikis. One hears lots of stories, you know, but some say that a fighter named Odin lives in a town called Sion. Also, I have a Laconian pot given by Nero. That would be helpful to you in your task. I wish I could help you more. I pray for your safety. Well, thank you, Nikis. Laconia is a metal, I believe, that is the sort of mithril or adamantite equivalent in Phantasy Star. Really hard, really light metal, good for weapons and such, nearly indestructible. So we have a pot made out of it. Not sure what purpose that'll hold at this point in our lives, but it's bound to be useful eventually. And here, we have one of Phantasy Star's famous first-person dungeons. This one is just sort of a little dungeon tutorial, has no actual enemies in it, but it works about the way you would expect a first-person dungeon to work. You move forward, backward, turn left and right, and this was pretty remarkable in its day for being so smoothly animated. Nothing here. But here's something. Chests can be trapped in this game, but I believe this first chest never will be. And usually traps aren't all that lethal unless you're really low level. There are 50 mesetas inside. Well, now that we have a little bit of currency, maybe we should do a little shopping. Also, as was suggested by one of the townspeople we spoke to, most dungeons are dark, but this one is not. Other times we typically will have to worry about having some sort of light source, but they're breaking us in easy. This is an armory. Do you want to buy something? Yes, I would. Now, most things here are way out of our price range, but we don't have anything in our shield slot, so we might as well pick up a leather sword, leather shield, I'm sorry. A leather sword would be very useless. Leather shield, just so we have something in both of our armor slots. And that'll do for now. I'm gonna go ahead and put that on. Item, leather shield, equip. What about this Laconian pot? There's no need to use that. Fair enough. Well, it's about time we ventured out into the wild, and we will soon be coming up on one of the bigger problems of Phantasy Star, I think. But not quite yet. It just occurred to me there's another town to explore briefly. This sort of red and gray barrier here is just, I guess, some sort of protective construction around the residential areas of the early game. Don't know if it's a force field or if it's just a regular wall, but in any case, as long as you're inside it, you will not encounter enemies, with one exception. If you walk on the forest tiles here, you can encounter enemies, and they are enemies that will ruin your shit at first level, so we're going to studiously avoid that. And we're going to check out our second town. There is an underground passage to the Gothic Forest somewhere to the west of Paralit. And Paralit is the name of this here second residential area. To the east lies a port town called Scion. It was mentioned that if we want to make a deal, we should head to the port town, so we have a little more information about that now. Medusa has been reborn, and lives in a cave to the south. If you see her, you will be turned to stone. Yeah, that's kind of how Medusa works. Interesting to know that we have figures of Greek mythology here in the Algol star system. These guys, I think, just say the usual crap about not passing without road pass, just so we can't get in from the south any easier than we could from the east. The forest is a dangerous place. Yeah, I just went over that briefly. In general, forest areas are going to have tougher enemies than the ones in the plains areas, but in the residential area, sort of three-part thing here, that's especially true. You just don't want to go there at all for a while. From the spaceport, you can go to Paseo on Motavia. This is Paralit residential area. Yeah, we've been over that. And we should probably take a look at the shops. Another armory. Here we have some various swords. One of them is almost reasonably priced, so we will probably be back for that in the not-too-distant future. Here we have a first food shop. Now, the manual described this as fast food shop, so I'm assuming this is sort of a romanization weirdness. Otherwise, it makes it sound like they sell Gerber. Anyway, every fast food shop in the game sells the same things, cola and burger, and these are your two healing items. And the amount of health they restore is directly reflected in their price. The cola will give you 10 hit points back, the burger 40. These were not cola and burgers, I believe, in the Japanese version. The cola might have been. I'm gonna have to look that one up and find out what that was. But the burger was a reference to Calorie Mate, which was a thing even far back then, long before Metal Gear was a glimmer in Kojima's eye. I believe it was called something like the Pellery Mate, and the item in Phantasy Star 4, the Parala Mate, is a reference to that. So, another sort of discrepancy between the US and Japanese versions that results in a reference that doesn't quite land. Might not be the worst idea to pick up a couple of Cokes for the road, but I think I'll pass for now. And finally, the second-hand shop, which just has your general range of items. There's the Flash, which is actually a flashlight, which does exactly what you'd expect it to do. Use it for dark dungeons. The Escaper lets you warp out of a dungeon, very handy. And the Magic Lamp is a permanent flash, so once you can buy the Magic Lamp, you will have a light source for the rest of the game. Don't have to worry about flashes anymore. There's one other thing that you will commonly find in the second-hand shops, and that is a Transer. And what a Transer does is warp you back to the last church you visited. And here we have a hospital, and a hospital does pretty much what you'd expect a hospital to do. It's this game's version of an inn. It's where you would go to heal anytime that you don't have a convenient free healing source like Suelo around. And with that, I think we've done about all we can do with towns for the immediate. So it's about time to properly embark on our journey. And here, as I mentioned, is where we start to run into a little bit of a problem. Phantasy Star 1's opening, sort of few hours are very, very money grindy. Like, if I go east, I can get to that port town of Sion, but there is very little point in doing so until I have at least 200 Meseta, and also, getting over there without completely getting my shit ruined is gonna be a little tough until I first get that sword upgrade. So first thing I have to do is grind up 75 Meseta for the iron sword. Then I'm going to have to grind up 200 for what we need to do with it in Sion. So, I am going to cut things here for the moment, and I will be back once I have all the funding I need. Actually, no, scratch that. I should show you a little bit of the combat before I cut out for grinding. And here we are. Our first couple of enemies are going to be two swarms. That's something you can tell by looking in the upper right corner where you see two enemies with 8 HP each. You'll only ever see one on the actual screen, and there can only ever be one kind of enemy in a particular fight, so we could run into one swarm, we could run into 6 swarms, but we couldn't run into swarms and something else at the same time. Menu's pretty straightforward. Attack is just whack something with your weapon. Magic, exactly what you'd expect. You can use an item in combat, usually that's going to be a Coke or a burger. You can talk to some enemies, or you can try to run away. And that works like it does in most RPGs. Sometimes you'll succeed, sometimes you'll fail and give the enemy a couple of free hits. Swarms are the weakest enemy in the game, so let's go ahead and beat these ones down. They do an average of 1 HP to us. I think it's possible for them to do 2, and it looks like our average hit is going to knock off about half of their hit points. Not quite half. Also, you can't do anything to control which of the enemies you hit, which is kind of unfortunate, so we're just going to be swinging at the swarms randomly, and we can't focus on one and bring it down. Like I said, this game is mechanically kind of primitive in a lot of ways. Well, that's one down. Swarm is killed. Got 4 XP. Treasure chest. Now we can start running into chests that might be trapped. From weak enemies like these, it's fairly unlikely, but the game could end very quickly and very unfortunately if I get unlucky here. Okay, just 6 Meseta. And from taking down 2 of the weakest enemy in the game, you can see we're already pretty beat up. So I'm gonna head on back to Suelo and get my HP restored. So yeah, the early going in Phantasy Star is really kind of rough. You need a lot of money that's gonna take you a while to build up, and you're also weak as a kitten. One of the first things that's gonna really help us out is getting our first party member, so we can at least spread out our damage that we take and are able to do more damage in a single round ourselves, but it's gonna be a little while before we're able to do that. Alice is gonna be on her own for a while, so we'll just have to make the best of it. Gonna drop my first save here. Well, saving one. And you can name your save file whatever you want. I think you can only name it once, and then every time you save over it in the future, it'll use the same name. First time I ever played this game, I didn't really have any particularly brilliant ideas for my first save slot, so I just entered Alice, and every subsequent run through the game, that's always been my first save file. A little bit of a tradition with me. So now that you've seen combat, I'm gonna see if I can get one of the other enemies you can encounter right at this very first section outside of the residential areas. Nope, just swarms again. Alright, well this seems like a perfectly good place to cut it until I run into one of the other enemies. Did a little better on our rolls there. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and cut it until I have that... Oh dear. Like I said, chests can be trapped. That one blowed up on me. There are only two kinds of traps. One is the arrow trap, which just shoots one person in your party. An explosion like that will damage everyone in your party, but since we're a party of one right now, that's not really relevant. It's already time to go back and heal once again. As I was saying, I'm going to go ahead and cut it at this point until I encounter another enemy, or until I have enough money for that for a sword upgrade. I will see you then. Ah, here we are, a scorpion. This is the other kind of enemy you can encounter at the very beginning, and they are substantially more dangerous than swarms. Taking down one of them probably wouldn't be a problem if I had full hit points. Right now, with myself a little damaged, and the scorpion having a little more than me, I'm not sure how well this is gonna go. Let's go ahead and take a poke at it. Oh yeah, we're only able to do 1 damage at this point. No, we can maybe do a little more than that. Let's see if we can win this thing, because it's only doing 1 damage to me, apparently. So it's looking like we will barely win this damage race. Whew, yeah. However, if I were to open this chest and it had a trap, I would certainly die, so I'm just gonna let the Meseta get away at this point. Alright, see you for the sword upgrade. Ah, we leveled up. Let's take a quick look at the stats. Our max HP has gone up to 20, and I'm sure that affected attack and defense somewhat, but I don't know what they were before, so I can't really say how much of an improvement that is. And there's one thing that I wish this game would do is tell you what your stats were, or rather what stats changed when you leveled up, but again, mechanically pretty primitive, so it doesn't do anything like that. Okay, I had 71 before, 6 Meseta. That should be enough for that first sword upgrade. So let's roll on back over to Paralit. I would like to buy something. The Iron Sword. The CRC there, by the way, that's a ceramic sword. Quite expensive. So let's see, our attack power is currently 14, with the shit sword. With the Iron Sword, we are now up to 22, so that's a pretty substantial jump. And now, unfortunately, we have to grind up to 200 before there's any point in heading over to Scion, so the grinding has only really begun when it comes to money. This, again, I think is one of the biggest weaknesses of Phantasy Star in that so much of the grindy parts are front-loaded. In absolute terms, I haven't been spending too many minutes at it, but the fact that it's the first thing you have to do in the game pretty much, that's just kind of questionable design in my opinion. But, you know, this was the mid-80s. Well, late 80s, I suppose. And, actually designing JRPGs for, well, not grindiness was not really a thing that happened yet. Well, I just one-shot a swarm there with my new sword. So that's definitely going to speed things up a little. Oh, there's another level. Before picking up the iron sword, tackling 2 scorpions is a very bad idea. It happened several times that I encountered them during the off-screen grinding, and I ran away every time, just because that is a damage race you are not going to win with the starting weapon. I said something critical about Phantasy Star, so I should say something nice, and that is that it may not look like much now, but back in the late 80s, this was a really amazing looking game, and I think it holds up pretty well. It's very obviously 8-bit, but very colorful, very detailed. The fact that enemies get their own good-sized portraits and they have their own attack animations is not something you saw much of at the time. Very nice backgrounds. For every kind of terrain, there's a different kind of background for when you encounter an enemy or when you just pull up the menu, and that's something that even Phantasy Star 2 didn't have on the Genesis. Holy shit. I didn't know I was going to be able to one-shot a scorpion at this point, but that's a very positive development. There's another level, and we learned our first spell. And that's the heal spell, which does exactly what you'd expect. Unfortunately, we have no MP, and I will not have any until I have a visit with Suelo, so let me go ahead and roll on back to Comet. Very conveniently, her house is close to the entry point for the town. I'm gonna go ahead and head into a fight and get myself banged up a little so I can try that out. Oh, we're actually starting to dodge. Well, we're missing a few HP now. Might as well try out that spell. Uses up 2 of our MP, but looks like it'll heal for a respectable amount. One other thing about this game that's a little on the primitive side is that the spell list is really very small. I think there are only 2 healing spells in the entire game. There's this one, and later there's a more powerful one. Don't recall its name off the top of my head right now, but yeah, it might seem a little strange for the very first healing spell to actually be decent, but it's really going to be your healing for half the game. And I just got blowed up, which means I'm probably hurt a fair bit now. Not all that bad. "203 Meseta. Our long national nightmare is over. For now. We're actually going to hit another money barrier pretty quickly. When I said the early part of the game was really loaded with money grinding problems, yeah, I was not shitting you. But at least we can head as far as Scion and see a little more of the game. If the random encounters will stop. On the bright side, we are now one-shotting scorpions as a matter of course. And here is the port town of Scion. We'll do the usual thing of going around and talking to everyone and checking out the houses. There is a hill named Bea Malay to the north of this town, but none of us dare approach it. This is the port town Scion. I knew that. Long ago, we thrived on trade. I'm guessing Lassic closed the ports or something, and therefore the long ago. These days, they're just getting by. A door locked with magic can only be opened with magic. Makes sense. Keeps in track with what I've learned from Ultima. They say that there are Motavian living on Motavia and Azorian on Dezoris. No shit. I'd sure like a chance to talk to someone. I'm someone. A cave called Nala lies on the north coast of Bea Malay. Odin set off to kill Medusa. He went with an animal that can speak. The animal had a bottle of medicine hanging from its neck, but I don't know what that is for. Well, it's probably for what medicine's usually for. A cave called Ayala can be found on the peninsula to the south of Scion. Well, we're learning some landmarks, none of them super relevant to us yet, but good to know for when we will inevitably have to track them down. I recently found a talking beast in the cave where Medusa lives. I sold him for a good price to a merchant from Paseo. Now that's where someone said that we can go from the spaceport, and that's a town on Motavia. Lines begin to be drawn connecting the points that we establish by just learning everything we can, and we need a compass to pass through the Epi Forest. Now then, we were coming to Scion to make a deal, right? So let's check out the shops. This is a second-hand shop. Can I help you? Well, I hope you can. You have secrets, eh? I don't know who told you that. You had best forget it. And we get kicked out of the shop. Well, that was rude. I want to learn some secrets. Yes, sell me the secrets. I tell you, no one can do. Go on back to wherever you came from. Rude. And it's kind of obtuse, but this is what the game is hinting at when it says you go there to make a deal. We're making a deal for some illicit stuff, but until we're actually able to convince the shopkeeper to sell it to us, we don't know exactly what the deal is being made for. Only that it's shady. And he doesn't know who told us about that kind of crap. Fortunately, one more try will do it. Alright, I give up. But don't tell anyone where you got this, okay? Your secrets are safe with me. And what exactly was it that we picked up? A road pass. Hey, I know what we can do with that. But I'm gonna peek into the other shop real quick before we move along. Another armory. Full of stuff that is mostly way too expensive for us. Leather armor, but we already have that. I think that's zirconium armor, maybe? Anyway, with our shiny new road pass, we're gonna want to roll on back to the residential zone with Caminite and Paralit, and see if we can't head on over to whatever that is to the west of Caminite and to the north of Paralit. But like we do, I'm gonna pop into Suolo's house real quick and crash on her couch, get my HP back. You may proceed. Cool. And they've got a nice moving walkway and everything. Long ago, a spaceship was built in the Gothic laboratory. Someone did mention that there was a path to the Gothic forest. Presumably the laboratory is nearby. The governor is in Paseo. He rules all of Motavia. This is Palma's spaceport. From the spaceport, you can go to Paseo on Motavia. Nothing we didn't already know, really. This manhole looks suspicious, but there's nothing we can do with it right now. Do you have your passport? Yes, I totally do. Don't be a fool. Because no, we don't have a passport. Well, what if we were honest? You may not pass. Oh well. You do what you do when you're stranded at the airport. Do a little shopping. First food shop. No, don't need anything from here right now. You can file for a passport here. That's exactly what we need. Do I want a passport? Yes. Have I ever done anything illegal? Yes. That's not good. You'll have to come back later. Well, I learned something today. Coming back later will scrub our criminal history. Do I want a passport? Yes. Have I ever done anything illegal? No. Buying a fake road pass is totally legal, right? Do I currently have an illness? Yes. Shit. Okay, let's do it properly this time. Nope, I'm fit as a fiddle. Shit. I would pay it. Yeah, don't have enough money. Story of my life. This is that other money wall that I mentioned. So now we're going to have to grind out another 100 meseta for a passport. Oh, here's something. If this is where I think it is, you remember the mention of needing a compass to get through the Epi Forest? I think that's the area south of here. Oh, I don't know that I want to fight that. The path in the woods is unclear. Yep, that is the Epi Forest, and that is the town of Epi at the middle of it, but though we will need to go there eventually, as you would expect, we can't do it yet. And this cave south of the residential area, that's the cave of Medusa that we were told about. Also, it was mentioned that Odin was sent off to kill Medusa, or rather went off to kill Medusa. I assume he did it under his own recognizance. So that's another place that's going to be important in the not terribly distant future, but going there right now would accomplish nothing and, well, it would probably get us killed too. Okay, 103 meseta. With our increased levels and our nifty sword, that didn't take terribly long. So I'm going to want to do the usual between-event thing of crashing on Suelo's couch again, and then we'll roll on back over to the spaceport and get ourselves the required documentation. Feeling better. Damn straight I may. Do I want one? Yes. Nope, I'm a regular Girl Scout. Hale and hearty. Would I pay it? You bet I would. I don't think there are any flavor text for these items, but let's check anyway. No need to use that. And no need to use that. Fair enough. I sure do. I'm not being a fool this time. And before we move on, are there any other workers to talk to here? Nope, doesn't look that way. Let's go ahead and check out one of these spaceships. Bound for Motavia. Getting on? And yes, we can indeed hop a flight here. You know how I mentioned Phantasy Star kinda has its own vibe? Yep, before we ever even get our first additional party member, we're leaving the planet. And we're landed. Welcome to the desert planet. Welcome to the Paseo spaceport on Motavia. Thanks. It is said that antlions roam in the desert. That's true. The antlions at this point present an impassable barrier. They will slaughter us if we attempt to fight them, and even if we could win, then the barrier would remain and we couldn't pass. So we'll just have to steer clear of anywhere with antlions right now. On the brighter side, there is a cake shop in the cave called Nala on Palma. And the Cave of Nala, we were told, is north of Sion on the hill of Bea Malay, so we'll want to check that out eventually. I mean, who doesn't like cake? We'll do our usual thing of chatting everyone up before we move on. A gift is needed if you wish to see the governor. That's kind of corrupt, isn't it? There is a cave called Maharu in a mountain to the north of Paseo. We're sure learning about a lot of caves, but most of them aren't important to us right away. Some intelligent monsters have their own language. Well, we do have a talk command on the menu. Haven't encountered anything we can use it with yet. But, if the monsters speak a different language, then we may need an additional step before we can talk to most of them. Governor loves sweets. Well, if the governor, loves sweets and we need a gift to see him and there's a cake shop in a cave, well, once again, you start to connect the dots. It's not possible to pass through Outlion on foot. But if we were not on foot, it might be possible. Kinda have to read a little into things sometimes. This is Paseo, Motavia's capital. Good place for the spaceport, I suppose. I feel asleep. Well, this is the tunnel to the governor's mansion, but it is locked. And we don't have a dungeon key, as we're told we need to get through locked doors, so we'll have to leave the governor alone for now. We don't have any cake for him yet anyway. Motavia's governor and Lassic are not on good terms, it said. Well, if you need a gift to see him, that does seem a little questionable, but if he doesn't like Lassic, he can't be all bad. Anywho, so we were told that a talking animal had been captured in Palma and was sold to someone on Motavia in the city of Paseo. So maybe he'll be in one of the shops here. This is a second-hand shop. Can I help you? Maybe. A flash and escaper, pretty much standard stuff. We could buy a passport here, but we couldn't get here without a passport, so no point to that. How about shop number 2? That'll be an armory. Short sword. Thick fur. Kind of strange. And diamond armor. Yeah, we're not going to be affording that anytime soon. Third and final. I have a rare animal here. Would you pay 1 billion mesetas for it? Bet your ass I would. Okay, yeah, I am a liar because, you know, even if you were to grind until the heat death of the universe, there's no way you'd be able to get 1 billion meseta, and I don't think the game is even capable of tracking that many digits. So let's be honest this time. Rare animal here, would I pay 1 billion meseta for it? No, I would not. I see you have a strange pot. Shall I trade the animal for it? You mean to tell me this Laconia pot that Nikis just handed over to me is worth 1 billion meseta? I'm really kind of inclined to fence that and just get that shitload of money, but, well, we're not going to advance the story if we go and do that, so let's go ahead and make a trade. Alright, there you go with him. We will be fellow travelers. I'm Alice, what's your name? I'm Mayao. Now, that could just be a single syllable thing like meow, or it could even be meow, I don't know. But as a kid, I always called him Meow, so I'm gonna stick with that. Meow, have you ever heard of a man named Odin? Yes, but he has turned to stone. If he drinks this medicine, he'll be okay, but I cannot open the bottle. Okay, that seems like a bit of poor planning on Odin's part. He gives the medicine to restore him from stone to his cat buddy, but the cat lacks opposable thumbs and therefore can't do shit about it if Odin does get turned to stone. Yeah, Odin, Nero said we should seek him out, he'll be helpful in our mission, but, not getting a very bright first impression of the guy. Well then, we'd better go save Odin together, okay? And there we go, we have Meow chasing around behind us, and he will indeed be our first party member. I would also like to observe that heading left and right, Alice's sprite is not mirrored. Her sword actually changes sides the way it should be. Little details, but I like them. Let's take a quick look at our stats here. Okay, our attack is 26, defense 28. Maya's 18 and 22, so he's a little weaker than Alice, but he is only level 1, so that would account for it. And we would be able to buy him, oh, wrong shop. We would be able to buy the thick fur for him, and that would be actually the only armor in the entire game he can use, but that's a little on the expensive side, so I'm in no hurry to get that. You may have noticed that Maya has no weapon, but that's okay, he doesn't actually need one, he can attack just fine with his claws. So, with our first party member in hand, and a little more to our mission, being able to go and find Odin in Medusa's cave and recover him from his petrified state, that seems like a fairly good place to leave off for now. So we'll drop a save. And we'll call it a day. Really grindy there, and there will be certainly some more grinding to come, but things will start to move a little faster from here on out. At any rate, I hope you're enjoying the trip so far, and I look forward to seeing you next episode of I Played a Thing, Phantasy Star, where we go to rescue Odin. Till then, take care, and don't take any wooden meseta. Today's Go Gold More has been brought to you by Justin Carpenter, Nolden, Zangamarth, Anonymous Benefactor, John Madigan, Sanguine Games, Misha Van Doren, Frank Grizzy, Tim J., Lolo De Puzzlo, Joshua C. Ritchie, Jared C. Rice, Sonic Rose, EX Potemkin, Alicia Goranson, Mechasaurus, DG Jono, Doug Russell, August Fortnite, Patrick Bellinger, Rob Lyons, Andy Kurland, Jarogue, Martin Schauenmakers, Mayo the Hedgefox, Hildegard Argelmach, IGV, Jazel, and other fantastic patrons. We at I Played a Thing would also like to thank all of our subscribers and watchers and our Too Good for YouTube commentariat. Thank you all very much for watching, and until we meet again, may the world treat you kindly.